convince to come and share their experience of sales and marketing with you, all with a view to making you more successful in your business. Now, we are also bringing you the very worst and the very best of marketing content from the internet, and every other Wednesday, we pull in the concierge of co-creation at Crazy Might Work to speculate wildly about the news and how it might affect your life. So the concierge of co-creation at Crazy Might Work, it's that Melanie Farmer. Good morning, Melanie.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing this week?
I
What's
am
your good news?
I am extraordinarily well. I'm in a really good mood. I don't know why. You know what I did? You know we do a little boast before we do anything else. I'll tell you what I did, which I'm really happy about. Is I bought myself a pair of speakers. They cost
Nice.
they cost about 100 quid. They sit on each end of my desk, and it feels like Nina Simone is behind my monitor, like singing to me. It's like so beautiful. And I think it might be 30 years since I owned a decent pair of speakers, and I can't believe I've neglected my ears like this. So this is my number one recommendation for everyone today. Go and get yourself a pair of speakers. Spend 100 quid. They're by Edifier. Everyone raves about them on the internet. It's like, I don't know what they're talking about. They talk about the mids and the lows and the bass, and everyone raves about the whole thing. The whole experience is amazing. I haven't heard music, Melanie Farmer, for 30 years, and I'm hearing music, and it makes this place where I'm sitting now, where I do my work, a much nicer place to be. And I'm sitting here and getting work done, which is rare for me, to be fair.
I have a really strong belief that if you buy toys for your inner child, it says in return, I will give you a lot of energy, and then
Yes.
you can do a lot more work. So I think it's really important to reward yourself with things like that, to give yourself, I guess, pats on the back, because otherwise you're just flogging yourself, and your inner child's going, why would I bother giving you any energy? You've bought me no toys for 30 years.
You've been neglecting your ears for 30 years. I think that's 100. I think that's 100% true. I think if you're in business, you have to be looking for things to celebrate, and then you have to reward yourself, because Lord knows it's quite miserable if you're not doing that, you know? So you really have to be looking for things to celebrate, and then you have to be rewarding yourself. Um, but that's not how I roll. I buy myself toys all day, every day. That's what I do. My buying myself toys has absolutely nothing to do with my work performance whatsoever. The two are completely divorced and have been forever, which is why it's increasingly surprising that I've been neglecting my ears like this for 30 years. Because music is amazing again. Do you know what I mean? And I'm listening to all the amazing music that I know and I love. And I thought I was like a bit of a muso. But the fact of the matter is, I probably haven't been hearing 40% of what's in the music, you know? So that's my boast for the week, and my recommendation: go and buy yourself a nice pair of speakers. If you don't have them, sit them on each edge of your desk, and you will be sitting in music heaven and producing like a... I'm swearing a lot
Professional.
today. Let's just say mofo.
Good for you. Well,
Good.
we've been shortlisted for two national awards.
Oh, I only bought myself some speakers.
Well, hey, we haven't won them, so
Shortlisted is good. Shortlisted is on the way. What are the national awards?
this is the Telstra Business Awards. So the two awards, one is for embracing innovation, and one is for championing health.
Oh,
So
okay.
we do a lot of work in health innovation, and so on. And it would be amazing to win that award, because every time we go for a tender or a proposal for a client who's doing something in health, which one would you choose? You're going to choose the national award winner for championing health, which is one of our major sectors. So, but either one, it's great anyway to be shortlisted for both.
100%. So what was the innovation one? It was for...
Embracing innovation.
Yeah, but you don't embrace innovation. You guys are like championing innovation. You guys are like driving innovation. You guys are like the innovation superheroes, you know, like
That's
embracing
better than
innovation.
thought leader, which we have banned from our vocabulary.
Thought leader.
Funnily enough, we just like, oh yeah, we've got a funny thing about describing ourselves as thought leaders. We're like, don't do it. But the thing about it's interesting, there are innovation consulting firms who are not innovative themselves. So we
Yes.
apply these things to ourselves. So we practice what we preach, and that is actually not what many do. That often you can be out teaching stuff, but you teach best what you most need to learn. So what we do is not that. We apply these lessons to ourselves, which makes for really a fun company. But yeah, it's very it's good because it's confronting in a good way. We sort of realize, oh gosh, we have to do this ourselves, and we do. So
Yeah.
that's why we're listed.
Good. Cool. Well done, you. And I bought
Yeah,
myself some speakers. Remember, don't forget about my speakers.
yeah. No, I'm more excited about that. If I'm honest, that's inspired me to
Good.
action for sure.
Excellent. Cool. Right. So we are here for a little boast. We do like to have a little boast before we get started, but we are mainly here to talk about the news. So, what's been going on in your marketing world in the last couple of weeks that has caught your attention? And if you can give me the headlines, then I will be able to pull them up when we come to speak about them.
Right. So one is Nike teams up with Roblox, Roblox,
I
to
know what
create.
Roblox is. I know how to spell Roblox.
Good. To create a virtual world called Nikeland.
Okay, the trouble I have is spelling the word with. Okay, so I've spelt that correctly.
Yeah, that is
Okay,
tough.
so Nike is teaming up with. I've got this on CNBC.com. Is that where you found it?
Yep.
Good. I'm not a fan of CNBC.com, but we'll let it slide this time. Okay, fantastic. So that's interesting news. Virtual world type stuff from Nike.
Yeah, this is the way to do metaverse, I think. Interesting.
Okay,
The
cool.
second story is about travel. It's what's going on in travel, which I've been interested in watching travel collapse and knowing it's going to recover strong this year and next.
Yep.
And so this story is it's really how. Let me go back actually, because I think it's here we are. How the world of travel marketing has changed since COVID.
Okay, how the world of travel marketing has changed since COVID. Okay, good. CNBC again. I've got a video on CNBC.
And then the next one is IT news. So whether we talk about all of these, but this is the last one, I should say. Twitter blames Musk weak ad market for drop in revenue. This has got a bit
Twitter
worse.
blames Musk for weak
Weak ad
market. Okay, good.
And I'll tell you what's very interesting, probably the most interesting, more than that even, is I found an infographic which tells us the average revenue per user across 9 platforms and their overall revenue and overall number of active users, which I think is so relevant to all of our conversations.
Okay, cool. Can you send me that link?
Yeah, I will do.
Have you got a chat thing there where you can send me the link?
Can I? I cannot, but what I will do is I'll email it to you.
Okay, you email it to me like it's 1996.
Yeah, unless I can WhatsApp you or whatever. But here we go. I'm emailing it to you. And
Okay,
this,
cool.
I think, is man, you can lose your life on this in a good way because it's actually there you go, Gmail, and it's coming your way. But the reason I found this is because of the Twitter thing. I thought how important it is. So TikTok is outperforming Twitter, $46 average revenue per user versus Twitter $9 revenue per user.
Wow.
And
Okay,
then
good. Melanie Farmer.
Right, but then interesting is that Twitter overall is like 3.7 billion revenue versus TikTok 34.3 billion revenue. So it's got $30 billion more revenue, TikTok over Twitter. So
Yes.
and that's all the others as well. So it's quite interesting anyway.
Okay, cool. We're coming there. Okay, cool. Right, so my stories are Facebook is restoring the chronological feed of posts to their feed line, whatever it's called, which is proof, I think, if proof were needed, that somebody at Facebook, probably Mark Zuckerberg, is listening to our conversations. Because I've been talking about this for 3 months, haven't I? How they had the most amazing thing, and they screwed it up. And then I've got the Meta stock price. So I think that's quite interesting. And then the other story I've got is Google. Well, 2 weeks ago, Google was saying that their staff need to act more entrepreneurial, which means basically they have to work harder and be more hungry, or else. And then just this week, it's been announced that they've put a freeze on recruitment. So I think that like the bigger conversation is about, it feels to me like the economy's going down the toilet. Marketing is always the first in the firing line. If Google don't even know how to deliver value in this environment, then what hope is there for all of us? There's hope for people listening to this, because hopefully we're going to have a conversation and let them know what the value is that they offer in the world. If customers are hard to come by, you don't just stop investing in getting customers. That's suicide right there. Good. So now we need to prioritize these. Shall we get the Twitter thing out of the way first? Because we do seem to talk about Elon Musk. The world seems to talk about Elon Musk all the time. And it's almost like he's only ever doing this stuff for the attention. It's almost like that, isn't it? It's almost like, how would Elon Musk feel if he wasn't all over the newspapers every single morning and all over the feeds?
It does feel like brand consistency to me.
It really does. It feels like really effective PR. Like somebody is always talking about Elon Musk at some time.
And look, he can't launch a rocket every week, so
He
perhaps
can't. And he can't have an affair, supposedly, allegedly, with every founding member of Google every week. He can't do that. He can't do that. So it's interesting. So what are they saying? So let's go. I've got a little bit of an issue with this. Oh, no, it's resolved itself. Oh, no, it hasn't. You might see that there's a very faint blue line. It's in the wrong place. I've fixed our issue. Okay, cool. So Twitter blames Musk. Did you get this from India Today?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Or we could go straight to source. Reuters. Let's go. Reuters. Okay, let's go Reuters. Okay, so what they're saying here is Twitter blames Musk weak ad market for drop in revenue.
Yeah, this broke 2 hours ago, so we're right on the money.
We are right on the money here. Can we, does that excuse the fact that this is clearly the poorest sentence I've seen written in my adult life? Twitter blames Musk. Weak ad market for drop in revenue. They didn't need that comma there at all, did they? They just didn't need that comma.
It doesn't get better, I will say that. But what is interesting is they're attributing $33 million as a direct cost related to the Musk deal, and that their in general costs and expenses have jumped 30%, which is a really weird number. So some interesting things. But what I also noticed at the end of this was Snapchat, who there's a little commentary on how they have said that it's been incredibly challenging spending conditions, so that advertisers in general are reducing their marketing spend, which always happens in a recession scenario. So there's certainly the marketing industry signalling this is happening, we're pulling out, and advertising spend is cut.
Okay. Yeah, so it's interesting. So they're saying advertising revenue rose just 2%. But given the state of the global economy, like inflation's running at 9%, I think, in the United States, surely any kind of increase is good news. Do you know what I mean? The economy seems to be disappearing down the toilets. Oh, because analysts were predicting 1.32 billion, so they didn't meet their expectation. Twitter is now in the unenviable position of convincing advertisers that its ad business is solid, regardless of how its court battle with Musk ends, and its Q2 earnings show that the platform has its work cut out for it to do that. Um, Twitter share opened flat at 38. Was it at 40 something before? I don't really know. I think. What do I think? What do you think?
Well, if you look at the nine main social media platforms, the infographic I found indicates that Twitter, as a place you'd advertise if you're looking for revenue per user, um, is fourth, but like significantly lower than the three before it, like a third. So if you had money, you'd put it elsewhere than Twitter, unless that's really where your audience is. So that's the other question, I guess. But I don't think yeah, you're on it now. That's right. I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's that.
So this makes me laugh because at one time in my life I sold telecom services, and we used to be really interested in the ARPU, the average revenue per user. But what is this ARPU based on? Is this based on what people spend when they click on ads, or is this based on how much advertising spend there is per user?
Yeah, so
Um,
it's an indication that if I'm a user, an active user is what they're saying on, let's say, Facebook, then, and I think this is Facebook Marketplace entirely. That's what that's going to be. Is that I'll go on there and the average spend of a user might be $30. I don't know if this is per year, per day, per visit, whatever.
per interaction, whatever it might be.
Yeah, so they've just calculated that on average, this is really a picture. And so you can see how well TikTok's doing, if that's true. Owned by Chinese, so what data are they sharing, and where? How can we interrogate it? I don't know, but it is interesting that the hype and the data can look different.
Yes.
Um, and then if you go down lower, which is quite even interesting in back of that, that this is showing not in order. These are presented in order of the top nine social networks, and then the revenue not in order of revenue, but they're presented in order of ARPU. So that average revenue per user, TikTok is first, Reddit is last, and and then but overall, even though your revenue per user might be a bit lower for Facebook versus TikTok, um, it's well compensated by the fact that Facebook are on 86 billion overall because they have so many more users. They have, nearly three times the number of users, active users. So it's just fun to slice and dice and look at this. But I thought it was interesting in light of Twitter to sort of see how few users Twitter actually has, and then if 5% of these are spam, I mean, who knows how many are actually active users on Twitter,
Yes.
and the revenue you're going to generate on Twitter. And if that's true as an advertiser, or if you think about your marketing, what does that mean in terms of your expectations as an advertiser?
This is
It-
brilliant
it-
work, Melanie Farmer.
yeah.
This is like really useful stuff. This isn't a great graphic, though, is it? Because they've ranked it by highest to lowest ARPU, but they haven't actually put the column with the ARPU on it. So it makes it incredibly confusing. So thank you for
Well, you have to
translating this for
reference.
us.
Yeah, you got to reference the bubbles above.
Yes, yes. They could have put that column in there. They could have made it make sense. Um,
That's
yes. Okay, good.
But what
So,
fun!
yeah, where would the fun be in that if we were,
And how much hype is there about Elon Musk and Twitter when really the conversation should be much more interesting in the land of TikTok? And yet, TikTok is virtually invisible in terms of humans or people on the board. It's very much about the user. You can see how Facebook, we talked about this last time, I think, how Facebook are finally listening, as you say, and shifting their views about revenue,
yes.
um, just in time, if you like. And I would imagine they are learning from TikTok and saying, it's time to wake up and do something different. And TikTok's flying from nowhere are ahead with
Yes.
that. LinkedIn's a totally different proposition. Of course, they have recruitment and all these other, so quite a different audience as well. And but they are uh, doing online learning. They're very much a professional network. So I wouldn't think of them as apples for apples with TikTok. But saying
No.
that, their model seems to be, just looking at that, more successful than Twitter.
Yeah. But I mean, I think we always have to take these things with a pinch of salt because we don't know where the information is coming from. We don't know who's paying for the information, whatever. But if this is
Yeah,
true, TikTok is killing it.
yeah,
Like they're actually outperforming their nearest rival, which is Facebook, which is, a whale by 50%. They're doing 50% better. They're doing 9 times better than Instagram. They're doing 4.5 times better than Twitter. Almost twice as well as LinkedIn. So TikTok are killing it. The thing that seems odd to me, or would cause me to question this, is this YouTube at £8.64. I would imagine, because everybody's on YouTube. I'm on YouTube and I'm buying camera equipment and stuff, and so that
yeah.
seems to me to be like, and Peter McKinnon is obviously on YouTube motivating people to buy stuff. So that seems to me to be low. But TikTok are absolutely killing it. And if they had put that column in here, then this would make sense. But the thing is, they're killing it. So probably not overall, but they're coming close to a half the revenue that Facebook are achieving, with only a quarter. Is that a quarter? Not a quarter. Yeah, a quarter of the users. So I suppose that stacks up. This is really interesting, really, really interesting. It's like good, proper work, like to understand what's going on in the world. Thank you, bless you for being here.
Yeah, get into it, everybody. I think particularly that it's with YouTube, you're seeing they've got 2.3 billion users versus Facebook 2.8 billion users, and so that they are the most in terms of numbers of users, but and TikTok have far less users. So
Yes,
that's why they're coming out they're looking so good to have that amount of revenue with, and that's why their average
yeah,
revenue is so high. So interesting. But I thought it just sort of takes away my interest in Twitter. And yet, if you looked at the news, you would imagine that the world was run by Twitter. And you're like,
yes.
actually, that's a sleepy little backwater compared to TikTok.
Yeah, the thing is, I think it is still the fourth largest, and they would argue the fourth
Yes.
most effective platform on the planet. But you're
Yes.
right, it's a quarter of what's going on with TikTok. And you're right, there's no drama, there's no soap opera, there's nothing going on with TikTok. They are just doing a decent job for their users,
I mean,
providing a platform for people. What's that?
give it 5 minutes because they are much younger, and you're generally quite brand forgiving in the first 5 years of any. As soon as it starts to become as big as Facebook, because Google in the beginning, it was Google had the same sort of we love Google beanbags and then
Yeah,
they got big. So I suspect what will happen with TikTok is we love TikTok, it's all about us, and then something might happen. Now that was probably a leadership when they mature. So you do have a bell curve that happens with company life cycles, and
yes,
unless they keep on pivoting, you risk. But Facebook have taken the opportunity to revert pieces of their heritage and the
yes,
right pieces, I think, and so that is much needed. But I suspect that somebody came in at some point in the leadership team at Facebook and said, "Let's make these 5 mistakes," and they went ahead. And now they're going, you know what? We've actually been overtaken. There's competition. We better wake up and go back to our
yes.
roots.
I think they've just because they've been listening to us talk about these things. I think that's what's gone on.
I think
Yeah.
send an invoice, and that'll work.
Okay, cool. So let's go then to my first story, which is this Facebook thing. So this is being reported in The Guardian.
Mm.
Facebook to restore chronological feed of posts from friends firmly splitting its newsfeed over two tabs on its iOS and Android apps. So I don't know how this is going to work on desktops necessarily. Facebook is going back to basics, restoring a chronological newsfeed to its app to make it easier for users to keep up with posts from their friends. More than a decade after Facebook updated its patented newsfeed to default to showing top stories rather than a chronological list of posts from friends and pages, the company is restoring the ability to easily see the most recent posts from your friends, pages, and groups. Facebook is splitting the feed over two tabs on its iOS and blah, 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 blah. They're saying the same thing. One of the most requested features for Facebook is to make sure people don't miss friends' posts, Mark Zuckerberg said in a post announcing the feature. So today, we're launching a feeds tab where you can see posts from your friends, groups, pages, and more separately in chronological order. So, call me cynical. He always does this, isn't he? So it's like, so today, one of the most requested features for Facebook is to make sure people don't miss friends' posts, Mark Zuckerberg said in a post. So for the last 10 years, we just completely ignored that.
Well, we waited until we had enough data. We needed 5 billion requests before we could
Yes,
actually
100%.
do that.
So who knew? Who knew that what people were interested in is their friends, their relatives, and things they've actually signed up for, rather than the shit that people paid Mark Zuckerberg to fill the newsfeed with? You know, it's
Yeah,
like,
train transfer and the weight loss program, yeah, all of that. Less
yes.
interested in knowing that Martin's bought speakers. I would rather know that, to be honest with you, than hear about some deal of a program that I don't ever intend to join.
Yeah, but this was the genius of it. It's the people you care most about talking about the things that you care most about, which is the people you care most about. It's genius. And then
Yes.
in the cheapest form of prostitution in the world ever, it's like, yeah, but if I slip a little bit of money in Mark Zuckerberg's pocket, then, and this is why people have left in their droves. I mean, I've got the other thing, like we're actually doing work. This is the Meta share price. So when
Oh
was
my
this?
goodness.
It has tanked. So this is what has to happen to Facebook before they do the thing that they will lecture us all about, which is listening to their customers. Look at the state of it. It's gone from more than 322. It's lost almost 50%. When is this? Since March of this year. Can we change it 1 day, 1 week, 1 hour, 1 month technical chart? We can't make it more than that.
So interesting.
Isn't it interesting? And the
You
thing
know, I think
is,
everyone will be like that in defense of Facebook. Not that I'm really or Meta, because I think the world is entering a recession, a global recession post COVID,
yeah,
and all the reserves are dried up. So I suspect this is partly to do with that, where ad revenue in general is going to fall off a cliff for a bit while we regroup, unless you get the right sectors like travel and that's going up. But it's going up from a low base. So yeah,
I think no. I think what's
you
gone on is that Facebook has been willfully and intentionally shit for the last 10 years. And now they finally have a competitor. And now, to create my favourite little South Africanism, they are seeing their ass. This is what's going on. And it takes this for them to realise that just taking all the money, that they have the actual honey, they have the nectar. Do you know what I mean? They have people talking about the things you care about. That
yeah,
is what is better than that? Nothing. Do you know what I mean? And they've neglected that for not for 10 minutes, not for 10 days, not for 10 weeks, not for 10 months, for 10 years. They have served up absolute rubbish and just taken the money of anyone who will pay to be in front of people. It's it's the 19th century social media publishing swindle. They just got it completely wrong. And the thing is it too late? You know, actually, will people realize this is going on and actually come back? Or is it just too late? Is it over?
well, the question I have is, do they just reverse to where they were, or do they keep up with the times? Because there's two different things: going back to what we were in 2003 versus taking the essence of that and updating that as well to capture where we're at now, which is we have a 10-second span versus whatever. So and then understand how we're going to monetize a reverse, because that will not be full of ads. So I think they've got a big challenge on their hands. The opportunity is there because they still have all these, this right now, the audience. But I think, do they have to redesign? Will it work to just go back? But I mean, one thing is shutting off all the irrelevant stuff I'm not interested in. That's going to help. Um,
The
you
thing
know, but
is, I started in media when somebody was first, not first, second or third, stupid enough to pay me some money. I started in media selling ads. And it was well established that the mix was 60-40. You need 60% editorial for 40% advertising. And so the whole world knew this. But Mark Zuckerberg didn't know this because he was a college student, then he went to work. But literally, they've been ramming advertisements down our throats for 10 years. And it's no wonder that, I mean, it seems to be happening very quickly now. Clearly, COVID is having an effect. Clearly, inflation is having an effect. But if you are an advertising platform, this is the direction that money comes in. Do you know what I mean? So, and this goes to the Google story that's coming up, which is if money isn't coming through you because of what's going on in the world, then how effective actually a marketing platform are you? If you can't even justify your existence to marketers or businesses who need customers now more than they've ever needed customers, So that's interesting, but that's my second story. I think it's too late. I don't think people are even going to be on Facebook to realise that it's going back to being good again. That's what I think. I mean, this could be one of the most amazing turnarounds ever, but I think it's too late. I think it's gone. I think they've been
it's a
taking
bit of
too
an
much money for
apology.
too long. What's up?
And I think you've got to be finding, like, how are they engaging with, yeah, I think it feels a little bit like an apology. Um, and really it needs to be more like, look at this surprising and interesting thing. Let's go together. We can X and Y. I mean, there's things in there which are amazing, like Facebook Marketplace, and I can find exactly what I need a kilometre away,
Yep.
and that's very successful. And I think that's where they're getting, for one place for revenue. But that is not. It's eBay really. That within Facebook. So
I think there are
yeah,
aspects of it that still work. Marketplace, like if I want to buy something, if I want to buy something quick and locally, then I will go to Marketplace before I go to anywhere else. That's a good, useful thing. So I'm still using Facebook in that aspect. The thing is, I'm not hearing any apology here. And the thing is, the deceit is that they've told us just be more interesting and relevant and you'll be successful. And that's a complete lie because the truth is, just give us money and you'll be successful. Do you know what I mean? So it's like they've been selling us a pup. And I don't
yeah,
see an apology. It's not like, sorry, we got it wrong for 10 years. I really don't see an apology. The thing is, it's still the best thing that's available. Like, no other platform is doing this where literally I've got to stop saying literally so much, but literally, the people I know and love, or the people that I've shown the most interested in, those 1,500 people, whatever, who over the last 15 years have said, "Are you on Facebook?" and connected with me, or I've connected with them. Those people are talking about the things that, I mean, maybe less now because I haven't done that for the last 5 years. But those people were the people that I was most interested in, talking about the things that I'm most interested in. I literally, stop saying literally. I used to sit down and I would, like, in a break, if I was teaching for a day, I would sit down at the beginning of the lunch hour. I'd get my lunch and I'd sit and I'd start scrolling and I wouldn't stop until I was reading stuff I'd read before. And then I was completely up to date with all of my friends. Do you know what I mean? And my family and everything. And I haven't done that in 8 years probably
yeah.
because
No,
of they
I'm
think they're so
like
clever
you.
with the
Yeah,
algorithm.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah. I completely agree. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be interesting because there's certainly more players and smarter players, it seems, or at least more with it,
Yeah.
in tune with their users. So
So they are, in my opinion, 100% doing exactly the thing that they need to do. The only question, and they still have, they're activating the best thing that's available in social media by a country mile. The only question is actually if they are doing this in time or if it's a busted flush already. And, neglecting your market for 10 years, you can get away with it if you're Facebook for 10 years, but you can't get away with it for 10 years and 2 months, maybe. That's kind of what's going on, I think. Good.
that's it.
Interesting. We really are assessing the news this week, eh?
Yeah, let's let them have it. Are we moving on to one of mine, or what are we doing?
We're moving on to one of yours, and yours is this Nike story.
Yeah,
So, what's going on with Nike?
yeah. I think this is kind of interesting. Just I've done a little bit of a background homework on Roblox, which is kind of kind of cool. It is interesting to me. I've got mixed feelings about this. So Nike are creating Nikeland, and Roblox are building it. There's a little snapshot of Nikeland. It's free for now. But what they're allowing you to do as a user is go in there and create your own avatar and outfits and so forth. So you can get your own Nike sneakers and this and that. So for Nike, it's an opportunity to test merchandise and have users create their own favorite shoe or whatever. And then if those things start to be worn by other people in Nike land, then they can actually produce it. Because what they realize is that if everyone's wearing the latest thing in Nike land, they'll probably wear it in real life. So
Yes.
it's a kind of a clever way to raise awareness and so forth. But then they can also have stuff happening in Nike land that's mirroring the real world. So you get um, the Olympics or um, whatever sort of NFL stuff that's happening. So you can have events that are mimicking what's happening in the real world, and you can go in and compete and whatever. So it is kind of interesting, and they can also put new outfits in to Nike Land that you can go and try on because it's free. They can see what's popular, so it's try
Yes.
before buy kind of thing. But it's even before they even make this thing. So I actually think it's a sustainable option, but the Roblox have had mixed reviews because they are monetizing things. They've got psychologists working to sell. There's a lot of kids in there. These kids are making games, so it is really a game platform. Um, and but there's also organisations who are putting games in there where it's very monetized, and so there's this sort of side conversation about are you targeting getting money from kids in there, and how do we all feel about that? Um, but for now, it's free, and
Yes.
I think it is a smart way to think of the metaverse, which is if you are a retail brand, create your own metaverse and try stuff in there and see what happens if it's the right audience. I mean,
Yeah.
the average age for Nike are targeting is 17 years old. That's their target when they advertise. They're saying what would a 17-year-old respond to, and that doesn't always mean show 17-year-olds. Sometimes it's showing a punk granny running along with her Nike shoes, just to kind of say you can be like this forever, sort of be funky and cool. But yeah, they're targeting 17-year-olds in general. So that's kind of interesting that they're piling in with Roblox to do this.
Yeah. And 100%, like finding new ways to test your products before you launch them is an eminently sensible thing to do. Um, Exploiting children because, Roblox is a children's game. I don't, that's an unfortunate thing. It's an unfortunate thing that an activity brand like Nike are investing in people sitting on their bottoms whilst they're in the metaverse.
Ah,
And
well, not quite, because you get points for moving.
do you?
So yeah, yeah. So if you it kind of Now, this is just yet another way to track people. I don't know, but the point being, if you download the app, whatever, it's a bit like Pokemon. If you walk around and do stuff, your character in your Nike land gets points and looks better and so on, and then they can trade that and get out. So it's rewarding physical activity. So that's a kind of an interesting twist on what you normally see, which is, sit on your butt and, have an avatar and don't actually leave your sofa. So that they're actually saying if you leave your sofa, you get more points.
Yes.
So that's kind of new to my mind. I think that's cool.
Well, no, there's what's the thing, the Wii Fit or something? Was it called Wii Fit? Where that's quite an
Yeah,
activity
yeah.
thing. Yeah, I don't know how I feel. I really don't. There's a guy, an Australian guy, and he's a lecturer at one of the universities in marketing, and he is at war with the idea that the metaverse, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, this has nothing to do with marketing as far as he's concerned. It's a distraction from marketing. And I really feel like that as well. Clearly, the metaverse is going to be a marketing platform eventually, but you're marketing to gamers is the way I feel about it right now. Do you know what I mean? And it's like
That's
whatever
who the
percentage of the
platform.
population that is. And the concern for me always is that the people who aren't digitally empowered, who don't have access to phones or computers or internet or whatever, are kind of excluded. So yeah, and I'm
You know what's interesting though, I think, is that what a game does is it gives you dopamine, and the more we feel isolated and unable to talk about our feelings and don't belong, the more a- attractive a gaming platform is from the age of 4. There are
yeah,
children getting depressed at the age of 4 because they don't belong, don't have friends. And if you go on a gaming platform, even from that age, you get dopamine because it's designed to give you the sense of belonging, winning, achieving. And
yes.
so, if you belong, win, achieve, and they have done things where they've shut off the possibility to chat until you're a certain age. So you can't actually be bullied and have that chat function
Or
until
groomed
you're.
by paedophiles. Why don't paedophiles get a chance to groom them?
Well, they can do if they're 11, but they can't chat. So there's a few factors around shutting off functions until you're cognitively able to process. But saying that, as a parent, they've got parent functions and what. I still do feel all of those things are great, but it is a bit concerning that you've got your dopamine coming from a game when it should be coming from real life, and you should be out there, sort of, as much as
Yeah,
you can. I'm guilty. Like, I love games, and I love the dopamine hit of just an epic win moment when you're playing a game and you kill the bad guy or whatever.
I didn't
So
have you down as a gamer. I definitely didn't have you down as a kill the bad guy kind of a gamer.
no,
Are
no,
you a
more of a
first
self
person
mystery.
shooter? Is that what you play?
I'm more self mystery gamer. That's me.
Oh,
But
okay.
either way, it's designed to give me a little dopamine hit and
Yes.
make. But that should, I say should, I don't like the word should, but I would prefer that it came from real life engagement. And so one thing I do like is that Nike are encouraging actually go out at some point and get, and your character moves and then you get something out of that versus just sit there and play games on the sofa.
Yeah. I mean, the issue is that, like, reading this thing, they're saying 100% if they know a bunch of kids are wearing it on Nikeland, then they will then come out with it in the physical world. But they are intending to be selling this stuff in the metaverse. I just think it's just like Nike is like an activity brand. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and have they
Well,
stopped to consider actually that people who are sitting on their couch playing computer games don't actually buy shoes? And have they actually just given up on the physical, or not given up, but they're just
well
hedging their bets?
they've got a vision of a 40% owned digital business by 2025. There's Nike. So John Donahoe, who's the new CEO, he was the CEO of or chief executive of eBay and ServiceNow. So
Yes.
the guy is all tech root. So I suspect that he is playing to his strengths, and
Yeah.
and it doesn't necessarily. mean that the previous CEO or like Phil Knight and all that may not have been their heartland. So I don't know how the whole of Nike feel about this direction, but I do think it's kind of interesting. And if you've got a retail clothing brand, it's a smart way to get, if it's young people that you want to test your product on. But it's not cheap. You can't just cheaply do it. You've got to set up, you've got to design these things and whatever. But yeah, it's interesting, and it's probably not a surprise given this CEO's roots that they would have expected he'd find a way
Yeah,
to do this.
his tech roots. You know how I feel about this. I just like the world. Can we not just be in the world? Can we not just do
Yeah,
that? And the thing is, Nike is an activity brand. So if Nike are intending to be 40% this thing and only 60% activity, then we're losing activity. Surely we're losing activity. That's what's going on. Cool story. Interesting. I do wonder if all of this stuff. What do you think to that idea that NFTs, metaverse, cryptocurrencies aren't really anything to do with marketing? It's just a distraction. How do you feel about that?
well, for me, I heavily think that marketing is, um, you know, where it's branding, and in many ways the success that I've had is around endorsement of your thing, so that somebody discovers you, and then now they've heard of you, choose to buy. But
Yes.
if these platforms and locations are supporting that effort, then they're marketing. And I think that if you look at McDonald's, how they put playgrounds into their restaurant, we call it a restaurant, then families are choosing to go there because they have got play equipment and the kids are babysat for a minute, and just having fun, on these slipper dips. But that creates a feeling of joy and association of happiness with going to McDonald's. And
Yeah.
so then you'll always think, I'm going to go to McDonald's and have a happy meal, literally. There you go, I'm using literally. And I think that's an example of like, what's that got to do with marketing? But it's actually by association. So in the same way, if you're in Nikeland having dopamine hit every 5 minutes, you're associating fun and having this endorphins dropped, so that are associated with Nike.
Yeah.
And so there's no Adidas land.
No.
And so then in a way, for me, it's strengthening my association with that brand. It's in tune with probably what children of that age, particularly in the last couple of years, would have been migrating towards. Even the sporty amongst us would have been in there.
Yep.
So, in that way, I think whether we like it or not, it's supporting the brand and my likelihood to buy from them.
Yeah. And what I'm thinking now is like marketing for me is putting your stuff where people are. That's like positioning yourself where they are. And the question I have now is whether we are actually corralling these children or herding these children into a place so we can market to them. And I think it doesn't really matter because we've done this forever. We herd people into the cinemas so they can be marketed to, or we herd people into, I don't know, Twitter, or I don't know,
Or the
sports
or
events. Do you know what I mean?
the playground. In you go to the
Yes.
playground. I mean, that's pretty dodgy. You would think, you can say, come and eat burgers and chips,
Yes.
and go on a playground there. Don't go to the park. Come to McDonald's.
Yes.
You don't need to go to the park. In fact, there is no playground in your area, but we've built our own. Come here.
Yeah.
Have your birthday party in McDonald's, and you're not eating anything that's going to help you with your life choices. I would think, we could
Yeah.
eating chips and burgers. So
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't
now
like it.
I've
I
got
don't.
mixed feelings about the age in there. That's what I just think. Well, what if you went into an older PlayStation or somewhere like, but it doesn't feel.
It doesn't
These
feel
are
cool.
it's
And
very young, 9, 8, yeah. So
yeah. And the people actually in need, like the old people, are increasingly isolated. Do you know what I mean? I think it's sad. I don't think we're going to stop it. Shall we go on to my next story? My next story is about Google. So, Google, I've got these stories here. Um, Google announces hiring pause. So, this is the last thing. The thing before this was July 13th. So, this was a couple of weeks ago. Google tells staff to act more entrepreneurial. Translation: work harder or else. So Sundar Pichai, boss of Google and its parent Alphabet, told employees to be more entrepreneurial and work with more hunger in a staff-wide email that warned of consolidation, several news outlets reported. Citing the uncertain global economic outlook, the CEO said Google would slow its hiring pace for the second half of 2022. Google brought on a whopping 10,000 workers during the second quarter, per Pichai. The chief Googler went on to say the company would consolidate where investments overlap and streamline its processes. Effectively, Google is calling on its staff to work harder or else. Now, this has moved on in the last couple of weeks. So just announced a couple of days ago, 3 days ago, Google announces hiring pause. Google said it will pause hiring for 2 weeks after saying last week it would slow its pace of hiring for the rest of the year. This is what we have to join to read that full story. So on hold and slowing down and now paused.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they're blaming the global situation, but I would say they've gone a long way to creating the global situation. They should take some responsibility for that. I mean, who knows if it's just completely reckless recruitment that's gone on, if they've recruited 10,000 people. Did they need 10,000 people? What I really think is that if this is it is a really effective way to market your business. Let me make that clear. It is a really cost-effective way to market your business if you are religiously fanatical about driving value through this. Because Google will rinse you in a second if you give them a second to do that. So I teach Google AdWords, for example, and I tell people Google wants your money, and that's the beginning and the end of it. So this is 100% what I think then, is I think that if they were more transparent, if they were delivering more value, they wouldn't need to be worried about global economic situations. Because if you're delivering value during a recession, if you're delivering value and it's not a recession, you're still delivering value. People will still be using you. And the issue for me is that the value that Google deliver is buried under a million policies and a million features and and then again, this grasping, like if you phone Google and you say my ads aren't working the way I want to, 100% they're going to say you're not spending enough money. So you phone Google and you say I'm not getting value from the money I'm spending with you, and their response all the time is you're not spending enough money.
I think the lesson there is, it's like somebody said to me once, this is like going to a butcher and asking if you should eat meat. What are they going to say? They're going to say, yeah, you should eat meat, and here's 10 types of meat you can eat.
Yes.
So, they're the wrong people to ask. However, you're asking them for, objective advice about how to optimize your advertising, and what you're getting is, well, the best thing you could do. Now, technically correct, if I gave them $5 billion, then the only thing you'd ever find when you Googled anything was me. But, that's not necessarily success, because now I'm out of business because I have no money left to do anything other than that.
Yes.
So, yeah, but that's no surprise. I do think, though, it's interesting about the constraints that the pandemic has wrought upon the world, and watching ad spend drop in general across the board, I'm thinking about the European privacy laws and the impact of that on Google, and the diminishing access to analytics that privacy laws are bringing about, and therefore the lower value that the less maturity that you can have as an advertising analyst, because you can't use these things, can't access these things everywhere now. So I think there's sort of some political and social changes that are potentially impacting Google as well with privacy. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of constraining factors and forces that are probably leading to this moment, and it could be that they are using the opportunity, because no one's going to blame them, to say, listen, while everyone's doing this is the best time for us to also consolidate. And
It could be that. It could be that they are victims of the global situation. Except what? Except I know. So what I tell people, like I'm talking about one of their products, which is Google Ads, I tell the people I teach, this is perfect marketing, because this is a formula. Because literally, you need to work out, the formula. A click costs this. I need this many clicks to get a customer. So a customer will actually cost me this. The only thing that prevents it from being the most perfect marketing ever is the fact that it's Google who are driving it. So we know that Google are inflating the bid prices. We know that Google are hiding now your rankings, so you don't actually get to know where you're ranking. So you're bidding to rank in a certain position, but you haven't known for the last 3 years actually where you're ranking. So what's to stop people bidding upwards and upwards and upwards? So the point for me is that they're not delivering value. And then the other issue here, because if they were, they wouldn't have a problem. The other issue here is that they are making it the responsibility of their staff and saying you have to work. It just sounds to me like the worst kind of business, where they're saying you have to do more for less because of like the global situation. I don't think it is the global situation. I think it's the fact that you have to work. You have to be fanatically religious about wanting to get value out of Google, to get value out of Google. Because otherwise, if you give them an inch, they will take your entire budget and they might put you out of business. So if they were doing, again, what they've been lecturing us about doing for the last 20 years, which is actually just delivering value for their customers, then I don't think they'd ever have an issue. And if they weren't so awash with money and clearly having overly too much recruitment, who needs to recruit 10,000 people in a year or a quarter or whatever it was? That is just
yeah,
baggy, So it feels to me like a baggy business that's not delivering value.
yeah, I can't. I mean, look, that's across the world, so it's not like one country has made that number of hires, but it's pretty against the trend. So you've got to think, why have we done that? Unless you've purchased a lot of metaverse experts, which don't exist at this point, and you're trying to do something that you had to do acquisitions
Yeah.
to achieve. But I don't. So we haven't unpacked that. Also, it does seem very off-brand to threaten your employees. It's not very Google. Like if what's happened there, that's a very unless it's taken out of context, because I do think it's an unusual frame of reference, because normally it's like, we're in it together, we're going to feed people, we're going to be more nutritious, we're going to let you sleep. That's Google. It doesn't feel like a very on brand message to be reported to anywhere, that
No.
they'd say work harder or leave. It's like, that doesn't, why would you do that? That just does not sound. Why would you join Google if you saw that as well? They're supposed to attract the best in the world who could go anywhere.
Yeah.
You're going to Google because you're going to be looked after until now. So are they on the same journey as Facebook? They've got to wake up to themselves after this. I don't know. It
Well,
seems
I
like
hope so. It feels a little bit like they're saying things are getting tough, things are going to get tough. But if you work for Google, they're going to get tough right now. We're expecting more from you for less, because we run our business in a baggy kind of a way, and we've recruited way too many people, and we don't offer anything like enough value. And so this is the situation that we found ourselves in. But the buck doesn't stop with what I've got no experience of, because I am the least corporate person on the planet. I would not last 2 minutes in a corporate situation. I would tell everyone to go fuck themselves in the first minute and a half, and then I'd be fired. Is how complicated these businesses have become. Because I think, like Facebook, if they were go back to the basics and not be so greedy, like I know, for example, when you place an ad, I don't know if you've ever done this, Google will recommend a bid strategy, a bid price, and it will be 30% more than what it needs to be. So they're inflating the bid price on the way in. Do you know what I mean? If it was just a free bid, then the market would decide how much that click is worth based on how many clicks they need to get a conversion to and their profitability and all those things. The market would sort it out. But the bid is rigged by Google because Google are greedy. So you can imagine every new entrant into for that search term is Google saying if you want to be at the top of the page, you have to bid this, and it's 30% more than it needs to be. So basically, every time a new entrant comes in, it's inflated by 30%, which eventually makes it not economically viable, which means that the opportunity goes away for businesses, which means that they stop advertising. If they have any sense, they stop advertising, which means Google have a hard time, which means that they have to lay off people, which means, do you know what I mean? It's like, it's a cycle. And the other big thing here is, like, my thing is, this is now the time of the opportunity. I was telling people at the beginning of the pandemic, this is either the biggest excuse you're ever going to have to get out of the game, no one's going to blame you, or it's the best opportunity you're ever going to have, because that's what these things are, and these things are coming now. So now we had the pandemic, and then immediately we're into inflation, and now we've got the war, but these things are opportunities. These things are happening because they're opportunities for people. And to see maybe the world's largest purveyor of marketing resource just upping sticks is a little bit of a worry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it looks to me like they're going to be merging functions and doing shared
Yeah,
uh, services. But so potentially that they're actually going to sort out structure again. But because it's creep. It's you get it. There's growth and there's shrink. So you're going to have the right leadership team for what's needed at the time you need it. In general, that's what happens. And so this is a time of shrinkage, and then there'll be a time of growth. And it's already happened super quick with travel. They laid everyone off, and now they're really busting at the seams because they don't have any baggage handlers, because people don't want to do
they
that
don't have
anymore.
any pilots.
They've all been sacked unceremoniously the minute that everything got tough, and
Yes,
then not gone off and done another job, which they're enjoying immensely now. And why would they come back? Because they're like, well, you showed no loyalty to me. Why should I give up my new life? And why should I come back to
yeah,
that?
100%.
I
And
was
I don't know
paying
if you've
40
got on a
pounds.
plane recently, but I've been on a plane recently. It's horrible. Like every flight is delayed by about 2 hours. And, then it's stressful because you've got connecting flights and all these things. It's horrible. Everyone I know who's been on a plane in the last 2 months has had stupid delays. And it's because they don't have pilots, they don't have baggage handlers, and it's because, exactly like you say, at the first opportunity, they just threw everyone out the door. Yeah,
Well, and
we
that was survive, but it's like those, they haven't said, right, before we have to actually prepare for the return, they've just gone return. And oh, hang on a minute, we've suddenly booked out and we don't have anyone to deal with. It's also just the land, the baggage handling on the ground crew for flights that are landing. So if you've got a flight coming in and you're British Airways, it's going Paris, London, you are not really controlling. You have a contract with Gatwick or Heathrow, and Gatwick and Heathrow are not delivering because
yeah,
they can't actually fill these roles. And because those people have gone off and they're now making jam, or they're running a cake company. These people have left, and
yes, yes,
they're like, well, listen, I'm quite happy doing my new online tutoring, whatever they're doing. It's they've had to do that thing for 2 years.
yes.
So is it more appealing to dump my nice new cake business I've set up and go back and pick up baggage? Yeah, no.
Here's an old-fashioned idea. You ready for an old-fashioned idea?
Go on.
Things are going to get tough, but you've committed to us by working with us, and we're committed to you by employing you to work with us. So we're going to come through this together. There's going to be less to share around, but we are going to share it around, and we're going to come through this together because we care about our employees and we care about our employees' families, and this is the way. This is a responsible way to do business. You know, when did that just completely go out of the window? The window. So at the very first opportunity, you're all out on your asses as soon as there's an opportunity to do it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah, where's the Jerry Maguire moment when you're less greedy and more focused on what you can deliver it well, and don't try and be too big before, so you can shrink and you can grow,
yes,
we, yeah.
and yeah, it just feels to me like all of these corporations are just grabbing every penny they possibly can and saving every possible. It doesn't feel to me like they're adding value to the world. That is the thing. We don't have time to talk about this travel thing in depth, but I did see. Did you see the press release? I think it was Emirates, the airline, um, saying that Heathrow completely screwed things, made no plan to get things back on track after the thing, and we've invested a huge amount in this. And now, essentially, Heathrow have just given us 24 hours' notice that we have to reduce our flights by X and Y and something else. And just to let you know, I mean, they literally threw Heathrow Airport under the bus. But just to let we are. Oh, and they were telling people that they were telling them that they had to cancel flights. I think so. They were just saying basically just to let you know,
This is
we
the
are still here to honour everything that's going on, and actually, it's not us who are doing this. So my God, it feels like industries are at war a little bit.
Well, I think with Heathrow, the issue would have been that they had an expectation that they'd have a queue out the door for people wanting to be a baggage handler and such like. And and to their surprise, nobody wanted these jobs. Well, not nobody, but not enough, nowhere near enough people. And then they do have training they've got to undertake. So the people who they had laid off, who had been trained, weren't all queuing up to say, "Oh, thank you so much. I can't wait to come back." These people had to do something for 2 years, and they underestimated the alternative choices these people have. So they would have
Yes,
said, "Right, yep, we're good to go," and they'll advertise jobs. Yes, yes. Now it had always taken 6 weeks to fill a role. Hang on a minute, 12 weeks have passed and no one's applied. So I suspect they've had this unexpected social response of no thanks. And now they're in the deep end because they've got no casuals, nothing, no way of
they
dealing with
haven't got
that.
pilots. They fired all the pilots because the
Yes,
pilots didn't want to take the vaccination. And they think this is reasonable. I've got this thing here. Let's end with this. Let's read this. Can I make it so his name isn't there? This is from Emirates. Emirates statement on operations at London Heathrow. So this is what's going on. Emirates values our partnerships with airport stakeholders across our network with whom we engage continuously and collaboratively to secure our flight operations and ensure minimal customer disruption, particularly over the peak travel months. It is therefore highly regrettable that LHR, London Heathrow, last evening gave us 36 hours to comply with capacity cuts of a figure that appears to be plucked from thin air. Their communications not only dictated the specific flights on which we should throw out paying passengers, but also threatened legal action for non-compliance. This is entirely unreasonable and unacceptable, and we reject these demands. At London Heathrow Airport, our ground handling and catering run by Dean Ater, part of the Emirates Group, are fully ready and capable of handling our flights. So the crux of the issue lies with. Let me zoom in. Oh, it gets cut off there. The bottom line is the LHR management team are cavalier about travellers and their airline customers. All the signals of a strong travel rebound were there, and for months, Emirates has been publicly vocal about the matter. We planned ahead to get a state of readiness to serve customers and travel demand, including rehiring and training 1,000 A380 pilots in the past year. LHR chose not to act, not to plan, not to invest. Now faced with Armageddon situation due to their incompetence and non-action, they are pushing the entire burden of costs and the scramble to sort the mess to airlines and travellers. The shareholders of London Heathrow should scrutinise the decisions of the LHR management team.
Wow.
I mean, that is
80.9 million passengers annually,
yes, and they've
$100,000 a day,
yeah
50% cut.
yes
Yeah, this is the whole.
arbitrary. We'll
Yeah,
just cut
this is.
half of what's going on.
Oh yeah, this is. I think this is because no one wants these jobs, and they expected they would, and they just went, "Oh, we'll just do like normal." They forget that a lot has happened in 2 years. Like I do think. I mean, I'm simplifying, and I don't know, but I suspect that, and then there's been an assumption that everyone's just dying to get these jobs.
But the thing is, Emirates are saying, look, everyone knew this was coming back.
Yeah.
We recruited and trained 1,000 pilots. London Heathrow did nothing.
I will tell you
So
this:
it's just poor management.
There's 10,000 years of data that this would happen.
Yes.
Because every time there's been a pandemic, I think I've talked about this before, which is more than one time.
Yeah.
Black plague, Chinese flu, whatever this, all bird flu. There's we go religious, we lock ourselves in, we get sick, we recount the damages for a year, then we go out and back in again, out and back in again. That's this year. Next year, it's all hell breaks loose, roaring 20s. Everybody out in the
Yeah.
street dancing and singing and full reclaiming our freedom,
Yeah.
whatever that is, right? But so there's 10,000 years of data. Every pandemic it's happened. So to imagine they haven't thought this through is shocking and worrying that they haven't understood that the world is impacted in that period, and then all we want to do is go out and
Yeah.
travel. Huge wonder for it.
And this is
Yeah.
what's the word? This is negligence on behalf
I
of the management of London Heathrow that they haven't. I mean, it seems to me entirely clear now. I don't know if anyone is arguing against this, but the entire response to the pandemic was wrong. It wasn't necessary and it was wrong. I think there was a study where they said it was 0.2% of lives were saved because of those huge lockdowns. But then the recovery is also just a mess. I mean, it's like, when are these
well,
people going to stop screwing this up?
I mean, I've heard all this stuff about Heathrow, it's not happening in Sydney, like in Australia. We're much smaller number of flights, and a lot
Someone
of
I know
airlines
flew from, maybe it's because it was Heathrow, but they flew from Sydney recently and their flight was delayed 6 hours on the way out.
leaving Sydney.
Leaving Sydney, yeah.
Perhaps that was like, if we fly, we can't land. I don't know. I haven't heard
Yeah,
that.
I mean, who knows what it was, but that was a direct flight with a stop off in Singapore where they stay on the plane and then go straight on. So maybe it was a Heathrow thing. The thing is, we're wandering maybe off of the marketing thing, but this is marketing. This is a press release that Emirates have put out. So it's kind of interesting that the world is a mess, and the people who should be taking responsibility, like Google showing some leadership and not just firing people, like Heathrow showing some leadership, not just firing people. The people who should be showing some leadership, the corporations the corporations that are responsible for 80.9 million passengers a year are just completely drunk at the wheel, it would seem.
Yeah.
Nobody is doing the right thing. I feel
Yeah.
like we've strayed, but I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, as I always do.
And look forward to the next one.
Okay, I'm going to put something in your diary for 2 weeks today. Like, it seems that this time on a Monday is the time that works. So I'll put it in for this time. And as always, you can move it a little bit if you need to. But you can't ignore it and you can't not accept it.
And let's see if Google's still in business then.
Yes.
Can't wait to find out.
Okay, super cool. You're an absolute legend, Melanie Farmer. Thank you so much for your time today.
See you
and
later,
I will see
sir.
you in a couple of weeks. Go win those awards. That's my recommendation. Or get nominated for some more awards. I won't be buying any more speakers. I'm completely happy with my speaker allocation now.
Enjoy.
Okay. Thank you, sister. Bye.